Hi, I'm Sarah Chen, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes family can be your worst enemy, especially in business. For 10 years, I poured my heart and soul into our family's small tech company, transforming it from a struggling startup into a $50 million enterprise. But sometimes success breeds jealousy even among those who should be celebrating your achievements. I still remember the day everything started, when our family business was nothing more than a small computer repair shop in a strip mall. Dad had started it 20 years ago, and it was his pride and joy, even though it barely made enough to support our family. My sister, Emma, was always his favorite, the one who got straight A's and went to an elite business school. I was the quiet one, the one who stayed behind to help Dad while pursuing my computer science degree at a local college. "Sarah, you're wasting your potential here," Emma would say during her visits home from college. "You should aim higher." But I saw something in our little shop that others didn't: potential. While Emma was studying theoretical business models, I was learning real-world programming and spotting gaps in the market. During my final year of college, I developed our first proprietary software, a simple but effective tool for small businesses to manage their inventory. It wasn't revolutionary, but it was user-friendly and affordable. Dad was skeptical at first, but when local businesses started buying licenses, his attitude changed. "Maybe you're onto something here, kiddo," he said, finally showing a glimmer of pride in my work. Those words meant everything to me then. If only I had known they were as temporary as morning dew. The business grew steadily under my guidance. I worked 14-hour days, 7 days a week. While Emma was climbing the corporate ladder at a prestigious consulting firm in New York, I was building something real. Our little repair shop transformed into a software development company, and our client base expanded from local businesses to national corporations. Mom watched it all with quiet concern. "Don't work too hard, Sarah," she'd say, bringing me dinner at the office. "You need a life outside of work too." But I was driven by a vision, and maybe, deep down, by a desire to prove myself to my family. 5 years into our transformation, we hit our first million in annual revenue. That's when Emma suddenly became interested in the family business again. She quit her job in New York and moved back home. "I think it's time I took my rightful place in the company," she announced at a family dinner. "With my business expertise, we could really take things to the next level." Dad beamed at her words. "That's wonderful, princess. We could use your professional touch around here." I sat there, fork suspended midair, trying to process what was happening. The company I had built from nearly nothing was being handed to my sister on a silver platter. But I swallowed my objections and tried to be a team player. Emma was appointed as co-CEO alongside me, despite having no experience in our industry. Dad said it would be good for the company image to have someone with her credentials at the helm. I focused on product development and operations while she handled marketing and investor relations. The next 5 years were a study in contrast. While I continued developing new software solutions and maintaining client relationships, Emma focused on creating a glamorous image for herself as the face of the company. She gave interviews about being a woman in tech and accepted awards for entrepreneurship, all of taking credit for innovations my team and I had created. Our revenue continued to grow, reaching $50 million annually, but so did the tension between us. Emma began excluding me from key meetings, making decisions without consulting me, and slowly pushing me to the sidelines of my own creation. Then came Dad's 60th birthday party. The day everything changed. The party was Emma's idea, of course. She rented out the grand ballroom of the city's most expensive hotel and invited all our business associates. It was more of a networking event than a birthday celebration, but that was Emma's style. Everything had to serve a purpose. I arrived early to help with the preparations, wearing a simple black dress that Emma immediately criticized. "Couldn't you have made more of an effort?" she hissed. "These are important people coming tonight." I ignored her comment and focused on greeting guests as they arrived. The room filled quickly with business associates, clients, and family friends. Emma worked the room like a politician, while I stayed in the background, making sure everything ran smoothly. During dinner, Emma clanked her glass and stood up for a speech. I expected the usual, a touching tribute to Dad, maybe some memories from our childhood. Instead, she dropped a bomb that would shatter our family forever. "As we celebrate Dad's 60th birthday," she began, her voice carrying across the silent room, "I think it's time to announce some changes at Chen Technologies. The board has agreed that the company needs unified leadership to move forward. My heart stopped. Board meetings? What board meetings? For too long, we've been held back by outdated thinking and resistance to change, Emma continued, her eyes fixing on me. That's why, effective immediately, I will be taking over as sole CEO. It's time for certain elements that are no longer serving our growth to step aside. The room erupted in murmurs. I sat there, frozen, as Emma continued her character assassination, disguised as a corporate announcement. Some people, she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy, are better suited to technical roles rather than leadership. My sister Sarah has been adequate in maintaining our legacy systems, but to compete in today's market, we need vision. We need excellence. And frankly, Sarah, you're just not cut out for this level of business. I looked at Dad, expecting, hoping, he would stand up for me. Instead, he was nodding along with Emma's words, a proud smile on his face. Mom stared at her plate, her hands trembling slightly. The truth is, Emma continued, her voice rising, you're worthless in today's business world, Sarah. Your old-fashioned ideas and lack of proper business education have become a liability. It's time for you to step aside gracefully. The silence in the room was deafening. Hundreds of eyes turned to me, waiting for my response. I could feel the pity, the schadenfreude, the judgment. Everything I had built, every sacrifice I had made, was being stripped away in front of everyone I knew. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. The sound echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. Everyone expected a scene, perhaps tears, maybe a shouting match. Instead, I simply picked up my purse, walked to Dad's table, and placed a small wrapped package in front of him. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said quietly. Then I walked out of the ballroom, head held high, leaving behind the whispers and stares. That night, as I sat in my home office surrounded by awards and patents that bore my name, I made a decision. Emma thought she had won, but she had forgotten one crucial detail, something that would turn her moment of triumph into the biggest mistake of her life. As I powered up my laptop and began typing, a small smile played on my lips. Tomorrow would be interesting indeed. After all, there's more than one way to run a successful business, and I had learned more in 10 years than Emma had learned in all her fancy business classes. The next morning would bring changes that none of them saw coming, changes that would make them realize exactly how worthless I really was. The next morning dawned bright and clear. I arrived at the office early before anyone else and waited. At precisely 9 a.m., Emma strutted through the front doors with Dad beside her, both wearing triumphant smiles that were about to be wiped from their faces. "Sarah?" Emma's voice held a mix of surprise and annoyance. "What are you doing here? I thought after last night, you'd have the dignity to stay home." I smiled, remembering the email I had sent at 3 a.m. to every major client, partner, and employee of Chen Technologies. "Just wrapping up some loose ends, sister dear. But since you're here, we should probably talk about the company's future." "There's nothing to discuss," Dad interjected, his voice firm. "Emma's in charge now. The board has already approved it." "Ah yes, the board," I said, pulling out my tablet. "Let's talk about that. You see, while Emma was busy planning parties and giving interviews, I was actually building this company, and there are a few things you both seem to have forgotten." I pulled up a document on the conference room's main screen. "First, let me remind you that I own 51% of Chen Technologies shares. When we incorporated 10 years ago, Dad gave Emma and me equal shares of 25% each, keeping 50% for himself. But 3 years ago, when we needed capital for expansion, Dad sold me 26% of the shares. Remember that day, Dad? You were too busy attending Emma's award ceremony to handle the negotiations yourself, so you signed the papers without reading them carefully." The color drained from both their faces. Emma's perfectly manicured hands gripped the conference table. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Dad would never." "Oh, but he did," I continued, pulling up more documents. "And that's not all. The core software that generates 80% of our revenue, it's not owned by Chen Technologies. It's owned by my separate company, Innovate Solutions LLC. Chen Technologies only has a licensing agreement which expires, I checked my watch, about 10 minutes ago." Dad collapsed into a chair, realization dawning on his face. "The renewal papers. The ones you asked me to sign last week. The ones you were too busy to read because you were helping Emma plan the party. Yes, those papers." I decided not to submit them. Emma's face contorted with rage. You underhanded little. Careful, sister, I cut her off. You might want to hear the rest before you finish that sentence. While you were busy announcing my supposedly graceful exit last night, I was sending emails to our clients. You see, most of our major clients have personal loyalty clauses in their contracts. They signed with Chen Technologies because of me, my expertise, and my track record. Last night, I informed them of the leadership changes and my departure. I pulled up my email showing the dozens of responses that had already arrived. Would you like to know how many have already triggered their contract termination clauses? Or how many of our top developers, who by the way are actually employed by Innovate Solutions, have already accepted positions at my new venture? The room fell silent. Through the glass walls, we could see employees gathering, whispers spreading as they checked their emails. Emma's perfect composure cracked as she frantically checked her phone. You can't do this, she stammered. The company you tried to steal from me? I finished for her. The one you thought you could just take over because you have an MBA and Dad's approval. That company ceased to exist the moment you decided to humiliate me in front of everyone we know. I stood up, smoothing my dress. So here are your options. Option 1. I walk away with my shares, my software, my clients, and my employees. Chen Technologies becomes an empty shell, and you can explain to all those important people you invited last night why the company's value dropped to zero overnight. Dad's face had aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. And option 2, he asked weakly. Option 2, you both resign. I take full control of Chen Technologies. You keep your shares as silent partners, receiving dividends but having no say in operations. Emma gets a nice severance package and glowing references for her next job, somewhere far away from here. Emma's face had turned an interesting shade of red. You planned this all along, didn't you? You've just been waiting for the right moment to stab us in the back. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. No, Emma. I spent 10 years trying to be a good daughter and sister while you both took me for granted. I built this company from nothing while you collected accolades for my work. I only planned this. I checked my watch again, about 12 hours ago, after you called me worthless in front of everyone we know. My phone buzzed, another client termination notice. Time's running out. What's it going to be? The next hour was a blur of paperwork and lawyers. By noon, I sat alone in what was now my office, looking out over the city. The company I had built was now truly mine, but the victory felt hollow. Family relationships lay in ruins around me, trust shattered like dropped crystal. Mom came to see me that evening, her eyes red from crying. Did it have to end this way? She asked softly. They gave me no choice, I replied, my voice gentle but firm. They would have taken everything I built and discarded me without a second thought. She nodded slowly, understanding but sad. What happens now? I showed her the plans I had already drawn up, expansions, new product lines, innovations I had been holding back. Now I built something even bigger, but this time, I'd do it without having to carry people who see me as worthless. Over the next year, Chen Technologies, under my sole leadership, tripled in value. Emma found a job with a startup in Silicon Valley, humbled but hopefully wiser. Dad retired, finally understanding that his golden child had nearly destroyed his legacy. We see each other at holidays, maintaining a polite distance that masks the wounds that may never fully heal. Sometimes late at night, I look at old family photos and feel a twinge of sadness for what we lost. But then I remember that night at the birthday party, the look of disdain on Emma's face. The way Dad nodded along with her cruel words. In business and in family, respect is earned, not given. They learned that lesson too late. As for me, I learned that sometimes the quiet ones, the ones dismissed as worthless, are the ones you should watch out for, because we're the ones who know how to build something from nothing and how to take it all back when others try to steal it. My story spread through business circles, a cautionary tale about underestimating the wrong person. These days, when I attend industry events, I often catch whispers. That's Sarah Chen, the one who. They never finish the sentence, but they don't have to. My success speaks for itself. Last week, I received an invitation to speak at Emma's business school's graduation ceremony. The topic? Hidden Strengths, the Power of Underestimated Leaders. I accepted the invitation with a small smile, already planning my speech. After all, I have quite a story to tell. The company continues to thrive under my leadership, but more importantly, I found peace with my decisions. Sometimes the strongest message you can send is simply proving people wrong. And sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about rising so high that they can't help but see their own mistakes. As I write this from my office overlooking the city, I'm reminded of something my mother once told me. Success is the best revenge, but wisdom is knowing when to stop seeking revenge and start seeking growth. She was right. I've moved past the need for revenge now. These days, I focus on building something meaningful, something that will outlast all the petty jealousies and family dramas. I still keep that wrapped birthday present I never gave Dad. A photo album of the company's journey from that tiny repair shop to what it is today. Maybe someday when the wounds have healed enough, I'll finally give it to him. Until then, it serves as a reminder that our greatest strengths often come from the very things others underestimate about us.